Americans are aware of rising gas prices. They're aware of this thing called climate change. They're concerned about, a world of insecurity, but I don't think they've quite translated that into their local economy. What has really pushed people this last year, I think, are two or three factors. One are concerns about public health, and as more goods come from abroad that kill, people from E. coli or kill pets from tainted Chinese food, there is a growing movement for people to localize and see the value in even putting more money into foodstuffs and other goods from people that they trust. There was a great study that was released in San Francisco 2 weeks ago, and it looked at 4 sectors of the economy: toys, sporting goods, books, and fast food. And in every single one of those sectors, it turned out for every dollar that you spent, if you spent it at a local business, you got almost twice as much local economic impact than if you spend it at a chain, or in some of the cases they were also looking at internet spending, which is the least useful for your economy. The bottom line was really quite stunning, that if there is a 10% shift of spending from local business to chain, San Francisco could lose 1,000 jobs. Or to put that in a positive way, if there's a 10% shift from chain to local, you could get 1,000 jobs, plus you'd get $200 million more of annual output from these firms. And as I said, these kinds of studies have been popping up all around the country, and I think really putting the conventional economic development teams on the defensive, because all of their development work has been focused on attraction or retention of non-local business. Whether or not you support George Bush, and most Americans don't support George Bush, there still is a perception that the world has become a very dangerous place for Americans. And as the dangers go up, people are seeking some form of security in home life, and they turn to their communities for that. And they realize that if all that's in their community are a bunch of chain stores run by people they never know or never meet, or their only connection with commerce is through e-commerce on their computers, they're never going to get community. So gradually, in many communities, people are reconnecting with local food and local hardware and local books, local services, local banking, and finding in those relationships a whole new sense of meaning in their lives. The idea of a multiplier is that when I spend $1 at, say, a local pharmacy, there are people who work at that pharmacy, they then get paid that $1. A person who works at the pharmacy then may spend the $1 at a local grocery store. The grocer may then use that $1 to buy food from a local farmer. And so you have a $1 that is circulating through the economy. And it turns out that the more times that $1 circulates in a defined geographic place, and the faster the $1 circulates without leakage, the more income, wealth, and jobs there are. And that's really the most fundamental premise of community and economic development. Generally speaking, if you look at, all dozen-plus studies done in this country and abroad over the last 10 years or so, you can say that every expenditure at a local business is going to yield 2 to 4 times the economic impact than you'll get from a non-local business. Economic developers claim that they have, by and large, abandoned this kind of behemoth-scale attraction of outside business. And it turns out to be, I think, a lie. What people don't realize is that every time you hear the words attraction or retention, it is almost always the case you are talking about a non-local business. Because a truly local business doesn't need to be retained, and it can't be attracted. So by definition, we're talking about non-local businesses. I'm working on a study now. We don't have the final results yet, but we're looking at business incentives in about a dozen states, most of them red states, And my preliminary guess is that in almost all the states, something between 70 and 99% of the money will be going to non-local businesses. And that's what masquerades as economic development. Or to put it in another way, overall, there's an estimate that U.S. state and local governments are spending something like $50 billion a year in attraction and retention. And I've estimated that the U.S. government is spending something like $63 billion. That's $113 billion of pork, the result of which, if not the intention, is to make small and local businesses less competitive.